Welcome to Lesson 3. Now you'll recall that in week 2, I showed you how to batch process with metadata, how to batch process keywords. Batch process, remember, is taking a lot of images and running them through a particular edit. I don't want to bash Lightroom. It's not that I hate Lightroom. It's just that I love Bridge. I love Bridge. I love Bridge. Why? Because it is so much faster and more efficient than Lightroom at even batch processing, which is super efficient anyway. Here's an example. And I give this to every photographer I meet with who's already a Lightroom fan. Let me ask you a question. Would you guess, what is the average amount of time it takes a wedding photographer to get those photos after the wedding to the bride and groom? What is the average amount of time that it takes for a wedding photographer to get their photos completely ready, edited, and sent to a bride and groom? What would you guess? Well, it turns out the average amount of time is 4 months. That blows my mind. Now, I have a friend who recently got their wedding photos back from their wedding photographer, whom they paid big money, in 13 months. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's appalling. I don't think that's professional in any way. 4 months to me is appalling. So let me tell you what I do. When I bid for a wedding project, I tell the bride and her mother, because that's actually who I'm selling to. The groom has nothing to say about it normally. But I say to the bride and her mother, I guarantee you I will have your photos back to you within 1 week from the wedding. Now, when I say that, that's usually enough with the equivalent power of the portfolio itself to get the work. That gets me the work. But let me tell you what I actually do. What I actually do is I get the bride and groom their wedding photos the night of the wedding. Wait, what? The day I shoot that wedding, and I go home, 8:30 p.m., 10:30 p.m., midnight, whatever it is. As soon as I get home, I download, edit all the photos, and get them back to the bride, usually via a Dropbox link, that the bride and groom wake up on the first day of their honeymoon discovering that the photos are already done. Now, I didn't have to do that. I promised her, I guaranteed her less than a week, but I under-promised, I over-delivered. And that gets me word of mouth, and that gets me repeat business. She's there sharing her photos while the wedding party are still in town. If she chooses to, she can Instagram them and Facebook them and share them and otherwise social media with her buddies, with her friends, with her loved ones. How is that possible? Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't think it is. It's not possible in Lightroom. At least I've never found a Lightroom user who can do that. But I'm not a Lightroom user. I'm a Bridge user, as is Brian Peterson. As is Joel Grimes. We use Bridge because it is so fast and efficient, and mostly due to batch processing. We've seen last week how to batch process metadata and keywords. Now you recall, this is just review. I selected multiple images, right? And we could batch process metadata by selecting them and editing metadata, particular metadata values, or we could create and apply metadata templates or add to those metadata templates. And those were batch processing of metadata. Now, also, likewise, when we imported off of the camera card, we saw that we could batch process metadata templates on the way in. That's review. We learned that we could batch process keywords by selecting multiple images, select all, let's say, on a photo shoot, and clicking to apply the particular keywords. We also saw that under metadata, in the keywords area was a way that we could paste metadata into the keywords field of the metadata values in order to batch process. So we've already seen batch processing for metadata and keywords. So this week, something new. This week, we're going to learn how to batch process color correction. How do you color correct 100 photos at one time? Let's say that you're shooting in a reception hall and the light is just orange. You don't have to edit those one at a time to color correct them. You do in Photoshop. But in Bridge, you can select them all and just batch process the color correction. Amazing. You got to know a trick. I'll show it to you this week. We're going to learn how to batch process edits, and that's going to be the major portion of lesson 3. I'm going to spend most of my time in this particular lesson showing you how to batch process edits. And that's generally done by editing and then saving presets. I'll spend more time on that in the rest of this video. But for most of the bonus videos, I'm going to cut you loose with very specific batch editing processes, right? Color correction, photographic stitching, otherwise known as panoramas, focus stacking to get better focus. We'll learn some of that next. And then next week, I'm going to pick back up with some tips on exporting batch processes, batch processing exports, and saves, and publishing type commands. All right, so let's get rolling. I'm going to take some image. Let's grab something. Got it. And Command R. I'm in Bridge, but I'm going to Command R to open and edit in the Camera Raw processor. That shouldn't be news to us yet. And again, I'm not going to go and unpack totally how I would edit in Adobe Camera Raw. If you're interested in that, and I hope that you are, I'm offering an entire course on that at BPSOP March 2022. All right, File menu, open in Camera Raw. I'm looking at an image. Now, what I could do is make some global edits to this image. Let me explain what I mean with global edits. Global edits are what happen when you first open an image from Bridge into Adobe Camera Raw. It's the basic panel that you are presented with. Now, if you don't see the basic panel ready for action, it's not already open, the arrow may be closed. The white arrow is pointing to the right, and you can open it by clicking the arrow. Another way you can do it is just do Command 1 or Control 1 on the PC. Command or Control 1 on the PC is a shortcut to open Panel 1. Curves is Panel 2. That would be Command 2, Control 2. Detail is number 3. You guessed it, Command or Control 3. And so on, and so on. So if I do Command or Control on the PC 1, I am in the basic panel. The basic panel is where the global edits occur. The edits to the entire photograph happen here. I can make these global edits and then save that global set of edits as a preset. Let's make a change here. My white balance as shot, fine. Or make it a bit more pink, a bit more green, right? I can make a change. I'm paying attention to each of these individual edits. My exposure looks pretty good on this image, but I'll make it a little bit higher. And the contrast, low, high, high looks good. The highlights down or up, just the highlights there, separating the bright stuff. The shadows separated, right? Hey, but my blackest blacks, they're nice and beefy, and on and on and on. That is just my basic panel. Now I continue to add global edits in some of these other panels. Command 2 are curves. And I could play with curves in some way. You don't understand all these things yet, but what you're going to see is I'm making changes. Detail panel. or Command or Control 3. And there I can do some sharpening commands, sharpening my image. This is also global. It's global. It's sharpening everywhere. There's a newish feature called Color Mixer that I can play. Hue only, saturation only, lightness only. Another new feature is called color grading. Now, in the old versions of Adobe Camera Raw, this was called split toning. If this sounds new to you, it's the old technology basically in a wrapped up, brand new presentation. I could globally, and that's here at the end, I could globally adjust particular hues or saturation values or luminance or lightness values, or I could do them just to my shadows, just to my midtones, just to my highlights. More on that in the editing in Adobe Camera Raw course. But what I'm pointing out here particularly is that I'm doing all these global edits. I'm going to skip down to optics. If I have color fringing, if I have something called chromatic aberration where color kind of bleeds or casts through on the edges of things, I could solve that here globally. Geometry might be problems with my lens or grain effects. Calibration, my camera calibration could be off. I'm just showing you there are all kinds of things I could do in here. All right, I can set a lens profile to automatically correct. Each lens has a slightly different distortion, and Bridge through Adobe Camera Raw can detect that and fix my profile distortions, my lens distortions. How does it even know what lens I used? It automatically reads the metadata to determine that. Jeez. Now, do you want to save that on or off? I've turned it on. I've turned on remove chromatic aberration. I've turned all that stuff on or off, and including what I've already done, reviewing the basic panel, the curve panel, the detail panel, all of those panels, all of them in total. Watch me now. If I do Command Shift on the Mac, P for preset, it now says, would you like to save all that stuff as a one-click preset? Well, yeah, I'm going to call it Do It with an exclamation point. Now, what is it saving? It's saving everything I did in the basic panel, the curve panel, the detail panel, the color mixer panel. It's what I did in every panel. And I could say, check it all, do it all. Or, no, please don't do everything. Check nothing, just so that I can make sure that all you did was my detail sharpening. If that's all I want Do It to be from now on, even though I did all those other things, you can save it with a subset of what you did or with everything that you did and call it Do It. That is a major time saver. I've created my own preset. How? Well, I did all this stuff. And then I Command Shift P on the Mac for save it as a preset. Control Shift P on Windows to save it as a preset on a PC. And I hit OK. Now I have something. It may not work on every image, but I'm trying. And I just created a preset that remembers everything. How did I do it? You saw me. Command Shift P, Control Shift P. But if I do Shift P, plain old Shift P, not Command Shift P, but Shift P on either Mac or PC, it takes me to a viewable presets panel. So I did Shift P to get there, just to see it. And that wasn't in the main panels. That was in one of these little side areas here, right? I'm looking at it. And that is where I'm going to find all of my saved, my particular users' saved presets will show up here. And they show up under a subcategory called user presets. And you can see this is not my first rodeo. I've done this before. Now remember, I just saved one called Do It. Oh, there it is. And so particularly I want to teach you, when you save your own presets, they will show up in this presets panel. I did it, but I want you to do something else. I'll talk more about it later. Don't just do it, but highlight, hover over Do It, and click on the star. And when you do that, it will add that user preset to another subset called favorites. And only the presets that you've added a star to will show up under your favorites. Your favorite presets is a special area of interest to you. And so I'm looking here through my user presets and I see, I've only favorited, I've only starred a few, and that doesn't make me happy. And if you don't star, if you don't favorite all of your user presets, you may not be happy either. So I'm going to take a little time to star all those. Now I'm going to pause here and fast forward until I'm finished. Whew. I starred them all. All right, now that I have all of my user presets, which you know how I created, Command-Shift-P, now that I have them all favorited, boy, is that important. You're going to see why. If you want to be fast and batch process quickly in Bridge, which you definitely want to do, you'll want to star those. And this is a little known trick. You're welcome. I've done that. I'm going to hit done or cancel. It doesn't matter. I've already created my presets, or some of them, and I've starred my presets. Now, over time, as I create more presets, I just star them. I favorite them, and I continue to build to this library of presets. And I'll explain some more of that later on. I'm going to hit, I said, do it and done. All right. Now, if you're ever interested in batch processing a bunch of images, and let me do that. Let me go find a folder full of images. All right, here I've got a bunch of images, and I'm going to Command-A, select them all, and watch this magic. I'm not going to go into the Camera Raw to edit all these images at once, although I could. Instead, what I'm going to do, now that I have favorited presets, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Watch. I'm going to either right-click on a 2-button mouse, or I'm going to control-click on a Mac. Control key click on a Mac. Control keys down, and I'm clicking. And I'm going to develop all of these photos at one time. Develop them all at one time. Now, when you try to do this at home, you're not going to see anything in here except what's above this line, little tiny 3 items, because these are presets you've saved in Camera Raw that you've also favorited. And if you've done that, then you can go to Develop Settings and you can do it to all of these at once, instantaneously. What? And so I'll edit one wedding photo, let's say, and that's going to work on all the rest of this subset. I'll save it as a preset, come back to Bridge, and just run it on all of them. I just batch processed an entire folder full of images, or just a few of them by selecting just a few of them. Batch process by control clicking or right clicking and developing. Worth knowing. There's another cool trick under that develop, and I want to show it to you. Let's say I just did that on these images, but then I go back and I want to do it on these images. Well, I can control click and say, run the previous conversion. Run what I did last time. Whatever the preset was, I don't remember, but I know it's the last one I did. Just run it again. It's right at the top. Oh yeah, do what I did there. Bang, bang, bang. Okay, now, I'm going to go back. Actually, I don't know if I like this. So watch. I'm going to control click and develop. I'm batch processing and clear all my batch process settings. I can say take this back. Now this is a big undo. This is a big clear. Take me back to how these photos looked when they came off my camera. Even if that's how they looked when they came off my camera 20 years ago, I could do that. That is a really big batch process. Select all, control click, get me back to the way they came off my camera. That is major batch processing. That will take your images, your babies, your children, and take them all the way back to birth. This is how they came off my camera. And often I'll receive images from a photographer and I get paid to re-edit their images. I may just say, I don't know what they did, let me set them back to scratch. I don't know what I did maybe. I want to set my images back to scratch. So you can batch process back to the beginning, should you choose to do that. There they went. Batch process. And so I've shown you. You can batch process metadata, keywords. You can batch process global presets. You can batch process local presets. That's where we start to dive out of Bridge and more into Adobe Camera Raw itself. But now in the bonus videos, I'm going to show you how to batch process color correction, photo stitches, focus stacks, all the other things I mentioned before. Okay, if you have any questions, email me. But otherwise, enjoy these bonus videos. Some of them are a bit longer because some of them are a bit more powerful, but they all save you the time in the long run. Any questions, email me, post to the forum. There's really no homework except for me to read and respond to your emails, which I will do mostly on Thursday's critique video. Enjoy.